Okay, let's call this meeting to order of the Tuttle Truckee Sanitation Agency for September 11th, 2019 at 9 a.m. And let's go into, let's call to order. Let the record reflect that Vice President is not in attendance here. Cox is not in attendance here. Pledge of Allegiance. Would Director Wilkins lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this point, we have public comment. Any person wishing to address the board on items not listed elsewhere on the agenda may do so at this time. Okay, hearing no public comment, I'll close the public comment section and go to item 3, professional achievement and awards.
Good morning, President Lewis and Director. Speaking with Rondo, HR Administrator for the record. Just wanted to acknowledge a few people for their achievements and anniversaries. If you would please stand and just so you could be acknowledged by the board, I'd appreciate it. So Justin Parrish. Come on. Yeah, okay. Justin received his collection system maintenance grade 2 certification, and he also received his electrical instrumentation grade 2 certification. So good job, Justin. And then Laura Mader. Laura, we have Laura's the lab director, and she is having a 5-year anniversary. Congratulations, Laura. And I don't see Tiffany in here, but Tiffany Cameron is our buyer, and she is celebrating her 1-year anniversary with us. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, staff, for the dedication you show forward for TTSA. The board and the directors here are all appreciative of the effort every month that you guys put in. So, okay, let's go on to consent calendar. For the consent agenda, items 1 through 5. Do we have any comment on any of the items?
I had a couple quick questions. Under the accounts payable, there's a $8,700 purchase for a Gravotech marking tool. I was just curious what that was.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing is we are going to be making tags for our equipment. It's going to be part of the asset management, and so it's an engraving tool for that.
Engraving tool, okay. Okay, let's see. On page 28 of my electronic version here, it's the year-to-date expenditures for the Fund Zero administration. Confused a little bit, LaRue, on the revenue. I'd like to get to that page.
Okay.
You there?
Down there.
On the revenue, for the month it says revenue is $140,561. Year-to-date is less than that.
It does say that. There must be an error in the sheet.
Okay, all right.
It should be at least at a minimum of the $140,561.
So, yeah, maybe,
And that would slightly change the percentage, but at a minimal base.
yeah. Let's see. On the very next page, I believe it is, for Fund 1, Operations and Maintenance, again, a question on the revenues. Service charges for the month of August, $11,000 in service charges received, but year-to-date, $10,873,000, 85% of the total year's revenues collected already. Is that accurate?
I know we receive those as we bill them out. Can you speak to that, Rochelle? If those numbers are accurate?
So since this is the first year that we're doing Cindy County, I know we've been working with our auditors on and have talked to TSP staff on exactly how it's posted and accrued. So I imagine on the sheet it's just a discrepancy because we billed out a little over 9 million.
Right.
For service charges. So it could be, the difference is what we've done, in-house for
Okay.
those few connection fee adjustments. But I imagine it is just an error on the
Okay.
sheet.
Maybe for next board meeting,
We'll
have a
address it.
clarification on those.
Most definitely.
Definitely.
Great. On the page 32 fund balances, I'm trying to just interpret, you have, are you there? You can see kind of, LaRue, on the column for revenue and expenditures. There's a couple numbers with an underline and then a summation number.
Right.
Just,
So what we're trying to do is demonstrate that we're dealing with cash and we're looking at this, we're dealing with a cash basis and a credit basis. So when you look at the balances from the other sheets, we're trying to demonstrate that we have expenditures of 317. When you start adding up to 35,000, the 373 would match another sheet. So we're trying to relay the cash versus the credit component of it.
okay,
Am I explaining that correctly, Rochelle?
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I may have a little follow-up.
I'll work with staff, see if we can find something easier to relay that. When we made this sheet months ago, we tried to make it clear, and we were working on a different format. So when you start looking at the balances, and we're
Right.
trying to showing what we had,
You want to be able to
We want it to match up.
cross-reference? Gotcha. No further
Okay.
questions or comments, yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion for consent calendar approval?
So moved.
Director Northrup makes the motion. Director Wilkins seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Okay, and let's go on to item 5. At this time, since we have the appellant here, we'll go to item 2 for appeal of service charges for APN 145-050-774.
Good morning. Rochelle Chavez, Administrative Services Manager. We have here an appeal for service charges for Mr. Zanfania. And after doing some audits with our increased inspections, our staff came across an error from the previous inspection when seats were listed as inside instead of outside. So the paperwork showed that they were all outside seats, but that error was made within the accounting system and never updated. So when doing our audit, we found this error, and per the ordinance, staff refunded a customer 2 years of service charges plus the adjustment for the current year. And at this time, so the table shows the years that the overcharge was processed for. And at this time, we recommend, since this was an in-house accounting error, to go ahead and refund them, even though this is outside the scope of the ordinance. It's a different scenario. So we recommend refunding an additional $9,511.20.
Board comment?
It's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. What have we done to correct this, so this doesn't happen again?
I think with the audit that we're doing right now, in addition to the increased inspections to meet the goal of the 4 years for the ordinance, staff is also working on a conversion chart with the changes from ordinance in 2015 to the one 2019 that we just passed. There's some changes in how we rate our unit fixtures. So they're doing an internal conversion before they go out to do these inspections. And by doing that, we'll be able to find more if there are any. But it allows them the chance to audit them before we even get to the service charge part, and get to the inspection portion. So hopefully by doing so, it's digging into the parcel file and has a lot of background work to see where their original unit fixtures came from. Over the years they change, so they can go back and audit each commercial account.
Good, good.
It's going to be take a little time, but hopefully we'll be able to eliminate any future errors.
Okay,
One
go ahead,
question.
Dr. Tresson.
Legal counsel, this doesn't set a precedent, does it? I mean, it was claimed that, you know, this was because of an in-house error. I could see an other event coming up where perhaps, you know, a customer, there was some, it wasn't our fault that something changed, it was some perception, and not, we wouldn't be required to refund everybody going back to the beginning under all cases.
Correct, it does not establish a legally binding precedent, but it could set a practical
Okay,
kind of precedent, if you will. It could be cited back at you, well, you,
yeah,
yeah, but not legally binding.
okay.
Okay. All righty.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to?
I so move.
Okay, Director Northwood makes a motion to refund.
Yeah, so you're
Okay.
moving that we grant the appeal?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I'd second that.
Okay, Director Wilkins seconds it. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, let's go to the comp and the classification comp study. At this point, you wanna, Vicki will start, okay?
Good morning again. As we are all aware, Bryce Consulting was approved to perform a agency compensation and classification study back in September of 2018. And as a result, Shelley Anderson is here today from Bryce Consulting to provide a presentation on the study.
Good morning.
So what I wanted to review with you this morning is just where we are in the study. We've concluded all of the study tasks. So with respect to the classification and compensation study, we've provided classification recommendations for each position within the organization. We've developed new job descriptions for each classification. We've conducted a market data analysis based on the agencies that were recommended by the ad hoc committee and approved by the board. We've developed salary recommendations for each classification as a combination of both the market data as well as internal alignment principles. And I've provided a detailed report that includes all of the policy decisions such as the labor market, the labor market position that was selected, our methodology, our findings, and our recommendations. So as you recall, we calculated the 75th percentile for total compensation for the agencies that were recommended by the ad hoc committee and approved by the board back in July. And so it included these organizations. On average, if we look at all of the classifications surveyed, the organization is 2.1% below market when we look at maximum base pay, 2.09% above market when we look at total cash, and 6.21% above market when we look at total compensation. We had 3 classifications that were 0 to 5% under market and 4 that are 5 to 10% under market. In terms of over market, we had 3 classifications that were 0 to 5%, 2 that were 5 to 10%, 3 that were 10 to 15% over market, 3 that were 15 to 20% over market, and 2 classifications that were more than 20% over market. In terms of the recommendations are based on the 75th percentile for total compensation, so it includes both salary and benefits, again, using the agencies that were approved by the board. With respect to internal alignment, anytime you do a compensation study, it's really a combination of the two. If you recall where we had multiple levels within a classification, we picked one level to survey. Classifications lower in the series were set a percentage below. Classifications that were higher in the series were set a percentage above. We had some instances where the market data created compaction. And so if that was the case between like a supervisor and highest level supervised, I made a recommendation based on internal alignment versus using the market data because it resulted in compaction. We also had some feedback by employees that raised some concerns or some issues about the recommendations. I took a close look at those, and in some instances they raised some very valid points as I went back and dug into the market data a little bit more, and so I made a recommendation to adjust the salaries outside of the market data using internal alignment practices. Rudy, do you want to talk to me more about that?
Yeah, we in previous board meetings, we referred to that as the smoothing. So I and Shelley worked together, and I just wanted to point out the areas that were smoothed in, give a little brief explanation to it. The first was the chief plan operator. When you started looking at the two lists, even though we have the ad hoc list here and using the 75 percentile, I needed a reference point to make a comparison. For the smoothing criteria, what I used in my analysis was there any smoothing supported by any data? What was the quantity, if any, employees that were affected by such smoothing? And was there an internal relationship within the agency for the smoothing? So I started looking through numerous positions here, and I'll explain how we got some of these smoothing conclusions were made. The chief plan operator, when you looked at the 75% price list, even though that wasn't the final list, it was a comparable. The CPO actually was compensated higher than the I&E supervisor and lab director. And those three positions are the first line supervisors below the manager. When you look at the ad hoc list, which is what list we ran with, we found out that the CPO was in between the lab director and I&E supervisor. So when it came to smoothing for the CPO, I made the conclusion that since he is the first line supervisor below the managers, I felt it would be equivalent. So his range was moved up to match that of the laboratory director and the IE supervisor. The other smoothing that was applied was operators versus mechanics. So using the same philosophy as the data, how many employees are affected in any internal relationships by the agency. When you looked at the data that was presented with the ad hoc list, the operators were compensated less, meaning for the 75 percentile market. So I went to the 75 percentile price list. It showed them making more than the mechanics, but equivalent, essentially the same, just $100 or so above. When we switched lists from the ad hoc list, the mechanics now were making more. The compensation was reversed. So then I took a look at it and kind of said, what does the data show you? The data shows you that there is no consistent trend on which series is compensated more. Depending on your comparables, it's going to determine which the higher series is. I looked at the number of staff that could have been affected by this, and we do have a lot of operators that are still growing through the series, meaning operator 3, shift supervisors. So there was quite a few operators affected. And we did have a historical relationship to operators to mechanics, meaning they're equal. So when it came to the smoothing for the operators and mechanics, the report indicated that the operators were at a lower range. I and Shelley talked about it and concluded that it was appropriate to make those equal to the mechanics. So you have a smoothing relationship there. The process in that, though, is you take benchmark locations. So you don't go through and you assign a salary and range for every position. You hit the benchmark positions. The internal relationships are going to determine what the differences are. Meaning, an operator 3 is the benchmark position, an operator 2 makes 20% less. Operator 1 makes 20% less, 10% less than the operator 2. Those internal relationships were provided by Bryce, and I didn't deviate from that. It's really more of the relationships of the series. So I was comfortable, like I said, making the operators equal to the mechanics. The third one that we looked at was chemists versus IE technicians. Again, using the same concept. When you looked at the 75% Bryce list, the I&E tech positions
Historically, have operators and mechanics been paid on the same scale?
they were.
So currently, a 1, 2, and 3 mechanic and operator are paid.
Correct. Right. And the point I was making about the internal relationships, I didn't go in and go, operator 1 makes this, operator 2. I set the benchmark, and the internal relationships makes that determination. The final one was the chemists and I&E technicians. When you look at the 75% Bryce list, the I&E techs made more than the chemist. When you look at the 75 ad hoc list, the I&E techs made more than the chemist. There was no data to support that they were flipped, meaning similar to the operations of mechanics, they were different, meaning one list they were higher, other lists they were not. The trend was the I&E technicians typically made more than the chemists. When we met, the board had decided that should we proceed on this, to consider making 2 salary schedules. And that if we have staff that are eligible to be moved up in higher classification, meaning maintaining the higher salary schedule A, so when we switch over to 75 percentile for salary schedule B, when they gave it an option, what it did was it put our current chemists into a chemist 3 position because they meet the certification requirements for that. So in doing so, what you're doing is you're moving them to higher salary schedule A, and no one's affected by salary schedule B. So the goal of the report is to find out what the 75 percentile is, set salary schedule B to it. So in this analysis, there are no staff that are affected by not doing a smoothing because they have moved into salary schedule A, therefore maintaining their higher salary. Did I make that clear on that one? So in essence, what I did was we looked at him. Doing a smoothing doesn't affect anybody, so I decided not to smooth those two. There were questions on safety officers. I did not smooth the safety officer. The safety officer has an internal relationship to the operations supervisor. So what happened was when you move and you match the operations to the mechanics and you gave them that bump in the range, all those internal relationships also came into factor. So if the operations supervisor is bumped in the range and the safety officer is tied to that relationship of operations supervisor, he in turn also gets a bump in the range. So these were some of the feedbacks that we're getting from staff. And I wanted to make sure that it was understood how the smoothing process was done, what the criteria, that we had worked with Shelley on it. She concluded and agreed that those are appropriate changes.
So although we, in the case of the safety officer, we compared that position to the market, you ended up going with really benchmarking it against another position, the relative salary, not using the market data, but positioning it relative to the other positions within the organization where it belonged.
And that was
Right.
my recommendation. And some of it is because your safety position, it encompasses more than just safety. When I looked at the market data, and again, it was something that was brought up through the employee review, the market data really focuses on kind of one element. Yours has a broader scope. I would, even though it's not a supervisor, the level of responsibility that it has for staff in terms of setting work methods and enforcing regulations, it is very similar to what a supervisor would have. It is currently set to the operations supervisor. I left that where it was.
So to recap, we did apply the smoothing as it pertained to the chief plant operator, the relationship between the operators and the mechanics. Those are the only smoothings that was applied.
So, just so I understand it, there was the chief plant operator position that the market data suggested would be paid less than the lab director position.
Correct.
But in what you're recommending is that we make that so that it's paid equal to the lab director position
And equal to the IME supervisor position.
and the INE supervisor.
And part of the issue with the INE supervisor, it was a survey class, but the market data created compaction between the supervisor and the 3 level. So I had to set the supervisor 20% above the 3 to minimize the compaction. So then it pushed it above your chief plant operator. But when you look at the agencies that had both a match for the INE supervisor and the chief plant operator, they almost all pay the chief plant operator more. But I have to make this data work for your structure, and you have 3 levels below your INE supervisor. I can't have it paid almost what the 3 makes. So I had to push it up for compaction purposes. So it's inconsistent. When you look at the numbers, the chief plant operator should have been less, but I had to ignore the market data for the INE supervisor because it would have put it right on top of the 3, so I had to raise it for compaction purposes. So that's where it's kind of, you take the market data and then you have to make it work for your organizational structure.
Right. So in that example, because that's kind of an example of as the tide comes in, all boats rise
Right.
from a salary standpoint,
Correct.
where there were some complications with the INE supervisor that pushed its position, pushed that salary range higher than the market data suggested. And because we're interested organizationally in having chief plant operator, the lab director, and the INE supervisor be paid on similar salary scales, it effectively pulled those other salary scales up along with it. So then, similar situation with the operators and the mechanics. Okay, and then the safety officer, remind me what the other positions, so the safety officer salary survey data was suggested a lower pay scale. But what were the internal positions that was being aligned with?
Bryce said it would align that with the operations supervisor.
Which is where it currently is.
So that's basically maintaining that.
Correct.
So then, the one area where that approach is potentially different is the chemist versus ID tech positions.
They're not currently paid the same.
They're not currently paid the same. Okay. So with the chief plant operator, lab director, I&E supervisor, those are on the same or very similar pay scales, the same with operators and mechanics, and the same with the safety officer and the operations supervisor. So with the chemists and the I&E tech positions, those are currently within the organization paid differently.
Yes, and they're both set to market. So we use the chemist 2 and the I&E tech 2 to survey, and then the ones are set below and the threes are set above. And then I made sure there was a sufficient spread between the lab director and the chemist 3, which there's like a 40% spread, and then the I&E supervisor and the I&E tech 3, there's a 20% spread.
Okay.
And that's because the lab director data came in higher than the normal 20% of the highest level supervised, so I'm not going to know that data.
I have a question. Isn't our intent is to promote employee retention and hopefully have them all paid well?
I would
That's a
think so.
question for us on the board.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, isn't that the intent?
Most organizations would like to compensate at a level that they're able to recruit and retain staff.
So there's some that don't.
Well, it all depends on what you can afford. Sometimes organizations can't afford to do that, unfortunately.
Right. Okay.
And if I can add to that, when you start looking at the Chem 1 and the INT techs to see if they're equal, they are similar. They're not equal. Others that are set.
Are you talking about in our current?
In our current one. And there's a little bit of restructure because we've kind of restructured where we have electrical technician now, which we're converting to an INT Tech 1. And then our current INT Tech 2 is going to be converted to 2. So we're kind of aligning that internally as well. But when you do the compare, I don't want to give the impression that that the spread is far. It is similar. So if you were to compare a senior chemist as we have now, which the provision or the proposed going to be 3 is about 83.23. When you compare that to the proposed INE Tech 3, it's 82.10. So they're similar.
So that's in the proposed salary schedules.
No, that's in our current salary schedule now. With the proposed salary, she's setting them to market. Likewise, when you start looking at our Chemist 2, very similar. We have a Lab Tech 1 and Lab Tech 2, which we're kind of morphing into a Chem 1 position. That could be similar as well, because now we're comparing 2 to 1. So I just didn't want to give the impression there's a large spread between them. There is some similarities in our current salary schedule.
So how does that spread change under the proposed salary schedule?
Under the proposed salary, they're using the 75% ad hoc list for those, they are lower.
The senior chemist let's just take those two positions you listed.
Yeah, let's use Chem 2 and Tech 2. I need Tech 2 because I have those as the data set points in the report.
Okay.
So the INE Tech 2 at the ad hoc list is 78.59 at the 75th percentile labor market. The Chem 2 is 64.47. If you want the Bryce list numbers for the INE Tech 2 position, it's 81.08, and the chemist 77.50.
Yeah, that's kind of irrelevant because that's not the labor. This whole conversation about the Bryce list and the new list, let's put that aside because that just confuses things.
Okay.
Because we've got a list, we've decided we're using that list, let's use that list and stop talking about some other list.
Yeah, that list is I use that for a relationship when you're comparing to make internal alignments of which ones are you comparing them to. But just for the ad hoc list, the INE Tech 2 is, like I said, 78.59, Chem 2, 64.47.
So the spread is much more significant
But, yeah.
than it is.
The INE Tech 2 was 5.9%. The recommendation was a 5.9% decrease based on the market data, and the chemist 2 was about 22%. So the chemist is further over market than the.
Okay.
Okay.
And then are there other, just, yeah, these kind of, you guys sound crazy, kind of looking at every position as compared to every other position in the organization. So it's kind of a question of where do you start or stop with this internal alignment consideration. So, okay.
All right.
So in terms of the recommendations, so the salary schedule, the new salary schedule that I proposed, as you might recall, there was some inconsistency in terms of the number of steps within your ranges as well as the percentage. So I created some consistency so that all classifications will be on a 6-step range with 5% between steps. We recommended the salary schedule A, which will be for existing employees, and the current salaries will remain in effect with no cost of living increase. Salary schedule B will be for new employees. It'll be set to the market, and that one will receive cost of living increases because that's how you stay consistent with market. And that's all I have. Whatever questions you might have.
All aboard. We get this revised study here. What's the opinion?
Lou, you walk through, you know, the process. So if the board adopts the study, what does that mean and where do we go from here?
The action today is to accept the study. After this, what I'd like to do is, at the October meeting, hold a closed session. Initially, the intent was to go ahead and accept the study in September, come back in October, adopt salary schedules A and B, job descriptions, organization tables, and some guidelines for the implementation on that. And then that would get that started, and then hopefully go into the discussion of employee benefits. We've had some meetings, we've had some comments from staff. After thinking about it a little more, I'd like to change that direction and kind of encompass the whole adoption of benefits and salaries as a whole, opposed to doing in October salaries and then having the discussion of benefits at a separate meeting. So what I'd like to do is initiate that discussion in October, then proceed with the closed session to have the discussion on board with the board of directors to see to have the discussion on employee benefits, and then start interacting with the staff. What that does is it doesn't adopt salaries in October as planned. Salary schedules, it would kind of combine them together. After the process, we would have a resolution that would memorialize the salaries and benefits as a package. So accepting the study does nothing but accept the study. It concludes Shelley's work. The agency still has the ability to discuss salaries, smoothing issues, maximum salaries, and during the process with staff, we can come back and make amendments to the board sees fit. So the action today is just to accept the study. It doesn't have an impact or imply that what's in the report is going to be implemented and adopted.
So we need a board motion?
We do need a board motion. At the next item to accept this item is just to have Shelley and Bryce Consulting presented, address questions, discuss the study.
So you're saying after, okay, we say we approve this and adopt it. You're saying then next month, then we'll be talking about the benefits and the compensation for the employees.
Correct.
Based on what we've approved here today.
Yeah, it can be based on that, though. The board has authority to change it.
Okay.
The idea is to have the conversation with the board of directors to get their input on salaries and benefits.
Right.
So there's no action in October regarding salaries and benefits. I'm just going to put it as a closed session item to have that discussion. Depending on how the discussions go, if everything comes to a quick conclusion, it could be November when the salaries and benefits are adopted. If not, then it'll take November. It'll take what the process takes.
Okay.
So it just basically says, here's a document we have to refer to.
Correct.
Yeah, we've got that, Shelley's work is done.
Right.
And we've got a tool to go forward with.
Forge ahead,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion for, I
Well,
mean,
we need public comment.
yeah,
And,
let's have the staff,
I had a couple other comments too, which I
Is-
could either wait until after public comment or go before.
is there any comment from employees here on where we are at this point?
I'd like to say something. My name's Jim Redmond. I'm in Maintenance Mech 3. When Dan brought up the point about he was calling it an internal alignment in the departments and stuff, well, I believe maintenance has been overlooked in that respect. When we all filled out our surveys and questionnaires for Shelley and stuff, I mentioned that myself and another senior mechanic, our position, we were topped out at Mech 3s, but actually what we relied upon is a higher level. And in the meantime, when the survey came back, our supervisors were titled foreman, their position was actually bumped down to a lead position. And it doesn't align with the I&E department or operations. And I think that's, created a bunch of division in the maintenance department and seeing how it's also handled with some of these other departments and smoothings.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other comment with regards to the study here?
Hi, Laura Mayer, I'm the lab director. I just wanted to make a comment about you guys' discussion about the chemist positions. When I looked at all the data, the lab director 75th percentile salary came from one set of data, and then the chemist salaries came from basically kind of a different data set. They were compared to the same organizations. I had made some comments to Shelley and to you guys about having a better percentage between my position and the chemist positions. I think right now it's 50% from my position to the top of the chemist range, and that doesn't line up with the chief operator or the I&E positions that are even with my position in this proposal. So I just thought that you were talking about rising tides, bringing up all boats, and that was an example of that. If they're going to look at that data set for my position, that it would be reasonable to bring up the positions under me to align with that. And I think that would be a concern with recruiting and retaining staff at the level that the chemist is listed at now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, closes the public comment session with regard to the survey here. Board, what's the direction here?
So, I think Shelley's done a lot of work and a lot of good work, and probably more than she had planned on. So, in terms of, accepting this information and basically concurring that she's completed, what her work scope called for, I think she's done that. And then this whole thing with internal alignment creates, the simple way to go about it is just take the data, go with the data, and call it good, because it simplifies things. Blake and I, because we were on the ad hoc committee, received a couple of letters from staff related to the internal alignment issue, saying, well, gee, there was internal alignment done here that benefited these positions, but I think it should be done for my position as well, and here's why. So I'm struggling a bit on that topic, because I've seen it done in organizations. It's very common to do. And so the area where I'm questioning is, do we just not do it, right? Do we just take the data as it was presented, and what that does is it tends to simplify the conversation about, well, why did that position get adjusted up a little bit and mine not? But then the downside of that is those positions that would have gotten bumped up a little bit don't, right?
The quality issue.
Yeah, so, and, anyway, that's the item that is, I'm thinking about right now. And that's not really an issue related to Shelley's work, it's an
No.
issue related to, kind of what philosophy we want to apply to this, and we would just want to take the data straight up and use it, and kind of keep things simple on that front, or do we want to kind of look at this internal alignment issue, recognizing that it would benefit some positions, and there's other positions that would not benefit, that may not get the benefit of that, they're not getting hurt by it. And just recognize that that's how things work sometimes. So that's the thing that I'm kind of mulling over as I sit here.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Blake?
it seems very scientific because there's so many numbers that are generated, but it's not really scientific. I mean, there's no, I don't care what position we have here, there's no exact person doing the exact same thing at another organization. There's always some tweak. Those other organizations aren't perfect comparators to TTSA, and so you have to sort of take a step back from the data and, you know, do what's right, as Shelley said, for the organization and look at what we are. And so I think, you know, it makes it more complicated because God, it'd be nice if this was, you know, data generated by some machine and it was perfect data and you just said that's accepted, but it's not. We have to recognize that, and I think we have to work, you know, it's our job as the board and management to interpret the data and apply it in the best way. And so, yeah, it would be simple to say that's what the numbers say, but the numbers, you know, we have to look at it. I think that's our job, and we've got lots of numbers, and I'm okay with accepting the report as it is, but I think it's still our duty to continue to look at it and try and really understand, you know, the nature of the numbers and the nature of our organization and all that stuff to again, develop the plan that we actually adopt that's right for our organization. So I guess my answer to you, Dan, is I would not, you know, whether that's, you know, these internal alignments or other things, I think, you know, there's still some work that we have to be open-minded about doing. So that would be my approach.
Okay, well, I'm sort of on Blake's end here, you know, conforming to this, to our operation here is what we need to do. You know, as we go forward with this. I think the amount of work Shelley's put in and what we have here, to work with for next month's discussion, we should go ahead and adopt it. And then
Adopted or accepted?
accept it,
Okay.
yeah. And then work out the internal inequities, if you want to call it inequities.
Well, I'd call it that.
Yeah,
I think that's a negative term.
not,
Well, we can fine tune it later on.
Fine tune.
Now we accept this,
right,
the price, and
Right.
now we have to fine tune
Right.
it.
okay,
How do you want the motor?
Well, but a fair amount of fine tuning's been done. And in my mind, so I agree with what both Blake and Lane are saying, which is I think we should accept the report, accept the data as is. I think as it relates to, are we going to continue to consider modifying areas for more internal alignment, that's something we should be clear on or not, because what we have is management, combination of management and Shelley's recommendation on areas where we should make some adjustments for internal alignment reasons. There's some other areas where they're not recommending we make those adjustments for valid reasons. So I think it's important for us to create an expectation with staff, either that, no, we're comfortable with management's recommendations and the consultant's recommendations on the internal alignments as they are, and you know, we're accepting those recommendations, or there's some areas where we want to continue to work on that. And I think we need to be clear on that, so we're setting expectations internally as to whether, you know, we're done, or whether, you know, we're accepting the data and we're gonna continue to modify it more, so. Anyway, do you have any comments?
I would agree with that. I think Shelley's done the work. I've worked with her. We've come to recommendations. I think the staff's position right now is they'd like to know, they should be aware of where the direction's going to be. They think that there's going to be more smoothing. I don't want to give them the impression that, well, if there is going to be no more smoothing, but I don't want to give them the impression that there is.
Right.
Now, we can do that process. We have the ad hoc process. We can reconvene with the ad hoc committee members, Blake and Dan, to go over those smoothings, or again, revisit them, or we can have the discussion as a board as a whole at another meeting. But I think at this point, I think this is a stressful study. You're looking at people's salaries, and it may potentially impact their lifestyle. I think you need to let them be aware of the direction we're going to go with it. Give them some time frames, and then they're here, they can hear it, and then I follow up after the board meetings and we can give them direction on that. So I would do request that we get some sort of expectation laid out, whether it be we're not going to conclude it now, we'll have ad hoc meetings, or we will revisit this, not revisit this, but I think it would be fair to lay out. So
Right.
Well, I think what the ad hoc committee did last time, you two, as far as pulling things together, was very beneficial for us. And I think maybe another ad hoc committee meeting, and then report back to the board next month. But except, you know, with the smooth.
The thing I'm cautious about is, will it ever, at what point does it
What point does it end? Okay.
Right? And yeah, I think LaRue made the point earlier that we're not looking to cut anyone's salary. With this internal alignment discussion, what we're looking at is taking a few positions and bumping them up a bit so that they're similar to positions we consider to be parallel positions within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
The net effect of that is it means that, you know, if it's a position that is a lower pay range than we currently have, it means that position will the pay range will catch up to what the person's actually making a bit quicker. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So that, you know, the conversation we had with the Tech 2 and the chemist positions. If we were to just say, okay, you know what, we're gonna set the chemist positions at the Tech 2 positions, it's not going to affect anyone's immediate salary. It's just going to mean that the salary range on the chemist position is going to be closer to what they're currently making, which would mean it would catch up to that individual a bit sooner than it would otherwise. So that's really the net effect, right, of what we're talking about here.
The way with the salary schedules, yeah, it's just a matter of time before they catch up. This just accelerates the catch up if you're going to make those moves.
Good.
Right.
Okay, so.
And so I think the recommendation we had from management specific to those positions is that they are different enough that setting them to be identical to one another, it's not what's being recommended. There's other positions where it is being recommended that be the case, and that can feel somewhat, that can feel somewhat arbitrary from an employee's perspective of, you know, why did that position over there get the benefit of this adjustment and why did I not? And, you know, that's really what we're talking about here. And I'm not sure that another round of ad hoc committee meetings is going to provide any more clarity on that. You know, I as a director, quite frankly, am not in the weeds of the day-to-day operation of the agency to the level that I feel like I'm in a good position to, you know, be an expert on that, right? That's really where I'm relying on management staff to advise us. So I just say I'm not sure that another ad hoc meeting to talk
Okay.
about internal alignment
Well,
issues.
management here is making the recommendation that we, you know, pull up those individuals.
Basically the operators,
Yeah,
the safety officer, and the chief plant operator
You know.
position. as I understand it.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
And what you
So-
said was absolutely right. You were really referring to the salary schedule B, which for the scenario with the chemist, they're not affected by it because when they move into the Chem 3 position, they would be in the higher salary range. And all you're really doing is, like you said, getting those 2 points together because the last conversations were COLAs were going to be applied to salary schedule B and not A. So through time, it'll get there. It's just when you're setting at the 75% market and you're not bumping it up, it does create that larger span, which potentially could be a longer period to get there. But no one's losing salary over it. And I thought the board was very generous to maintain salaries. I think 75% is a good labor market point. I think the ad hoc has made good recommendations to accommodate and allow those to be promoted to be a beneficiary of the higher salary of Schedule A. I thought those were reasonable. So this change does not, in my opinion, reduce anybody's salary. All it does is, like you mentioned, it reduces what it has potential to keep that window a little bit larger. But it does set at the 75% market. Keep in mind, other positions were set at the 75% market. So when you start getting into those conversations, there are other positions, this is your 75% market. So if we're going to say this is how it's going to be for these positions, I think likewise we should say it should be acceptable for this position as well. So we should be looking at it from both sides. And you nailed it, Ms. Kelly. It's really from the perspective of the staff and employee. We looked at it as a 75% market listed. We made these smoothing adjustments over the criteria of data, the quantity of staff affected. I think the recommendations are reasonable to keep us in the 75% market, desired market for salary schedule Bs. And I think when you start to deviate from that, you do get yourself in that situation where someone is going to perceive, no matter what action you have, potentially, that they're being treated differently. And that is not the intent or the direction you have to.
So, Dan, going back to your first comment, I guess to clarify, I think smoothing is a reasonable thing because the data is not perfect and we have to do that. Yeah, I generally, I concur with the recommendations that were made to deviate from the 75th percentile to create the appropriate internal alignments, the adjustments to the salaries to get
In those three kind of limited.
Yeah.
positions.
3 areas.
Yeah. Yeah, that made sense to me.
Makes sense to me too. Do we want to take action here?
Yeah, I mean, the sense I have is that we're all prepared to accept the study. And the other sense I've gotten from this conversation is that, we're comfortable with the internal alignment recommendations that are being made, and we're also comfortable, and we're not creating an expectation that we're going to be doing more internal alignment recommendations, modifications.
Yeah, barring, unforeseen things, yeah, this is where we're at.
Based on what we
Yes.
have in front
Yep.
of us at the moment. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
How do we word the motion?
I think the internal alignment thing, that's really just I don't think that needs to be a part of the
No, you're
motion.
accepting- you're accepting
Basically
this
accepting the
study.
study, but I
Yeah.
wanted to
Right.
try to provide as much clarity
Right.
as we could on what
Direction.
our expectations were with what we're doing with this going forward, so.
And I will follow up after the meeting. I've been corresponding with staff or emails and meetings, and following this meeting here, I'll provide that information.
Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like the appropriate motion would be to accept the study from Bryce Consulting. And then this will be information that we'll use in the upcoming process to establish or to update wages and benefits for the staff here.
Correct.
Is
Okay.
that the
Okay.
motion?
So the motion would be to accept this, I'll make a motion to accept the study from Bryce Consulting.
Okay, Director Wilkins makes a motion to accept this study.
I'll second.
Director Northrup seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley.
For all the work. Okay. Let's go back here. Okay, so we got that. Let's go back to item 1, appointment of agency board president and vice president. It's that time of the season to appoint a new president and vice president for the next, it's 2 years, right?
We do it 2 years, yes.
2 years.
This would be effective at the next meeting.
Yes. So with that, let's open it up for discussion.
A discussion or
Nomination.
Nomination?
But let's
Yeah.
have a
discuss it
discussion first. I'm the newest one on the
Yeah.
board. I'm just curious as to, and Lane, you and John have been here the
Yeah.
longest, what the historical practice has been. I
Well,
know Oz sat on.
Yeah,
as
we
the
never
president.
want to go back to
Okay.
where we were when we had to, when Oz,
And Oz was president right up to the day he
president for
resigned,
life.
right?
Correct.
And then you've been president since then, because you were
Correct,
vice
for the
president.
year and a half, for that year and a half period. When he
Okay.
resigned, I took
Okay,
his period, and now it's come around to the point for the 2-year
Okay.
cycle here. So prior to that, prior to Oz, so be it as far as what he called himself, the president for life, prior to that, it would come up, that discussion would be held every 2 years, and it would be up to the board to recommend, not based solely on, we did rotate it a few times, and a couple times it was on whoever the board felt wanted to be president, okay? So I just want to, it's my time for, my time's up here, and so it's, I fulfilled that segment of the presidency for the year and a half after Oz left.
And I think you've done a great job.
I nominate Lane Lewis for president.
I think Lane just got done saying that
Yeah.
he thinks that it'd be better if we started to rotate the presidency.
Right. If you want me to, I would, but I look at it,
I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, it's not that much work, but, if you want me to, I'll do it, but I want this discussed, because before, it was a slam dunk, and it created some ill feelings with the public and with the board here. We never had the opportunity to fully discuss the presidency or vice president position,
So Dale is currently the vice president. A lot of organizations, there's sort of a progression,
Right.
The vice president moves up to president, the next VP is sort of the de facto in the position to assume that role. I don't know whether, LaRue, did you have any conversations with Dale about his level of interest in taking on the board president role? I know he's
here,
he's-
so-
Yeah,
I
he's
know,
not-
but I don't know whether that,
I can share some comments.
okay. I know he's been doing
He
a
would
lot
have no
of,
objections to filling the president role, simply because he's the vice president right now.
Uh-huh.
I do know that he does share some concerns that because he would like to vacation and frequent Florida, that may be a potential conflict.
Yeah, but can't he
Just
do the
puts a little more
meetings
pressure on the
by,
vice president.
Right.
phone?
yeah, the vice president just takes
Can
it.
he be
Yeah.
president by phone?
He can.
I mean, is he willing to?
I never asked him directly. He's done that before. I'm just sharing the fact that I know that he's stressed that he would not be offended if another board director took the president position. His concern is that he does go
Right.
forward, and it may be a conflict.
Let me ask Dick a question. If Dale was president, and then on meetings where he was not, I think it's going to be impossible to run a meeting if you're not here.
It is.
So on
You
meetings
can't
when-
run it over the phone.
Right, so on meetings when he's not here, he's technically the president, but could he allow the board president, vice president to run the meeting for him? Or any reason he couldn't?
Yes, with the concurrence of all directors at that meeting, and I would concur. I've been out in some board meetings where the presiding officer's been on the phone, and it's a tough way to run a meeting.
Right.
I had that one time.
Yeah.
Okay, and where I was on the phone, but I did not run the meeting, the vice president ran the meeting.
Right,
Because it's too hard, how do you address the audience? Can't even see them.
right.
Well,
So,
between Blake and this guy, who wants to be president?
I guess, I mean, we had a nomination, but maybe that didn't actually come to fruition, but.
No, there was no second.
Okay.
No.
Died for a second,
Yeah.
so I would, I'd like to respect Dale's interest in his position as vice president and nominate Dale for president and Dan Wilkins in the vice president role.
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, and we just need to have it so, make sure Dale, when he gets back, accepts it, okay? Okay,
But it sounds
Yeah.
like LaRue had a conversation with him and he was
Right.
fine with that.
Yeah,
Right.
You know?
I want to make sure that we've been doing, he wasn't eager to do it
Yeah.
because of the situation. I'm sure he would fulfill it if elected.
I
just
really
never-
think it's a good thing that we
Right.
rotate it.
No, I agree.
Because, I mean, it's important
Yeah.
to, have a fresh perspective and have everybody have the opportunity to sit in this seat.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if
And
Dale
that's
were.
why, I'm not holding out to be, I wanted, I sort of wanted to recuse myself, but,
Right.
beforehand, but, I think it's important that this, that it does rotate, or that we always have an open discussion, to put the person in there that we feel as a board as a whole best represents.
Right,
That's all.
and I think if, at the next meeting, Dale were to come back and want to respectfully deny that,
Yeah.
or want to not be
We
president.
can have that
we could-
discussion
We could have the
again.
Well,
conversation
you
Yeah.
want to
again.
hold this off until he comes back next month?
I don't think we need to. Why don't we?
According to
why don't
LaRue,
we- why-
he's-
Cause he could always rescind it,
Oh,
next
okay.
month if he decided not
It
to.
sounded like Dale's caution was that he's expecting to not be able to attend some future board meetings and doesn't want to run a board meeting when he's not here. It sounds like we can get past that.
Yeah.
And it should work out fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay, wait a second, so let's make we have a motion and we have a second. Motion for Dale Cox to be president and Dan Wilkins to be vice president. Do we have any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I made the motion, and John, I think,
Yes.
seconded it.
And I just want to say, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve you directors as board president during the year and a half, and I appreciate the professionalism that this board has shown during that period of time.
Well, I'd also like to thank you, Lane, because, there were some, we had some employee issues that needed to involve the board, and then you functioned as the spokesperson for the board in closing the loop and communicating out with some of those employees.
Yes.
And I think you were unfairly targeted by those employees as being an individual, as though you were an individual making a determination on some things that were actually you representing the board's determination on some items. And, that, in my mind, was unfair to you, the way that you were targeted on that. So I just want to say thank you for, having the broad shoulders that you did to, fill that role for us.
Okay, well, it was, there was a period of time, and those things, you always look to doing what's best for the agency and leave all personal matters aside.
Right.
When you're sitting in the seat, you have to, and that's, we always want to do what's best for the agency, not what's best for each director, so appreciate the comment. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go to item 5, approval to award bid for repair of fiberglass caustic scrubber tank.
Morning, President Lewis, Board of Directors, Richard Palente, Maintenance Manager. So to give you a background, we've experienced a small leak on our caustic tank at the chlorine facility that serves as a scrubber in case of a leak. We went out to bid on August 14th. We received a single bid. We did structure the bid to estimate 3 days of repair to not only repair the current leak, but to evaluate the tank and make any repairs on any other soft spots or any other areas of concern. The bid we received was in the amount of $18,617.25 from Fiberglass Unlimited. The recommendation is to award the bid to Fiberglass Unlimited. I do want to highlight, though, that it was a 3-day estimate, and once they get in there, they may find additional work that needs to be done that would extend it beyond those 3 days, and then we'd have to change.
When was that tank originally furnished and installed?
As a part of the original construction of the aquarium building, I believe it was 1995.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah, I mean,
going on 25 years.
98, probably 21 years.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so we got a motion for approval here?
I will move to award the contract as indicated in the packet.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, let's go to item 6, approval of resolution 11/2019.
Good morning, one last time. TTSA Resolution 10-92 authorized members of the TTSA Board of Directors to participate in TTSA's medical plan similar to agency employees. The agency receives medical insurance through CalPERS pursuant to Public Employees Medical and Hospital Care Act, also known as PEMCA. PEMCA defines employees to include an officer of the contracting agency. The agency is a contracting agency. A director is an officer of the agency, and therefore directors are eligible for coverage under PEMCA. Since directors cannot participate in the CalPERS retirement system, they cannot be added to the agency health plan the same way that an active employee can. Therefore, CalPERS requires the employer to have a Group 700 non-PERS health resolution on file in order for the directors to participate in the agency health plan. The adoption of this resolution will enable the directors to participate in the agency medical plan consistent with the direction in Resolution 1092 as it relates to agency directors. For clarification, the proposed resolution does not change Resolution 1092 as it relates to the Board of Directors. Rather, it is a matter of meeting the requirements of CalPERS in order to properly administer the 1992 policy. This proposed resolution, the new one, 11-2019, does not apply to regular employees or annuitants of the agency, and it does not supersede or modify Resolution 10-92. And management and staff recommend the approval of Resolution 11-2019.
Okay,
Essentially, it's a housekeeping.
it's requirements by CalPERS, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So active board members can be on the same health plan that active employees are on.
Correct.
Does it talk about retired board members? Does it go to what benefits as far as health coverage are bestowed, if any, on a TTSA board member after they step down from the board?
TTSA board members, retired board members are not eligible for agency retiree medical coverage.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And you would have to be on the same retiree, or the same health plan as the employees. It's,
Correct.
you don't
Correct. So,
choose a health plan of your,
No.
correct. So PEMCA basically well, I believe it is actually government code states that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, with, it states that that board of directors may only receive the same or similar benefit as employees. So yes, we therefore are looking to just, if an active agency director is wanting to be on our health plan, we want them to be literally on our health plan.
Right.
But because agency directors don't participate in paying into the retirement system, we can't just add them the same way. You know, it's kind of a behind the scenes thing. We can't add them the same way into our health plan that we add a regular employee. And the only way to be able to add them and correctly administer the resolution 10-92 is to have this non-PERS health resolution on file.
Okay.
So this is basically codifying what the agency's practice has been. It's just this what's on file, or is this new? Have directors in the past used TTSA as their source of their health benefits?
I guess I would say there was a recent audit that was completed, and during that audit, we looked at the way the agency is applying Resolution 10-92, and in order to accurately apply it or appropriately apply the intention of Resolution 10-92, we need to have this CalPERS resolution on file, because it would then have active directors participating in our actual medical plan.
Okay.
How do we find out on our part how that works? I mean, is there an information sheet here, or will we be filling out forms?
Yes, so the directors that would be eligible to participate in this and that would want to participate in this, in the agency's medical plan, there's an enrollment form that they would complete, and then based on that enrollment form, I could enroll them into the CalPERS medical plan. And there are certain provisions that apply, and we'll talk to the people that are affected by it. This part isn't really part of it, but for for agency directors that are in the CalPERS plan, say at other agencies, for example, they're not actually eligible as a director to participate in the agency medical plan. I guess they would be actually, but they would have to relinquish their activity in their own agency's medical plan in order to participate in TTSA's medical plan. So in other words, you can only be in CalPERS medical plan through one agency.
Right.
And you guys currently contract for a 90-10 PERS choice or care, I can't remember what they call it ever.
Care, yeah.
Interesting, okay.
It's a housekeeping. Do I have any further discussion here? Is there a motion?
I will so move to adopt Resolution 11-2019.
I'll second.
Director Northrup seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, let's go on to updates here. Okay, let's go on to department reports. Michael?
Morning, President Lewis, Board of Directors, Michael Peak, Operations Manager. You see for the August report that all plant discharge requirements were met for the month. The Operations Department teamed up with Engineering and Maintenance Departments to facilitate several plant improvement projects, which we're moving forward with. Overall, the plant performed well. Laboratory staff performed necessary laboratory testing for WDR requirements and operational needs. Any questions?
Any questions, Board? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Morning again. So we continue to respond to USA big alerts along the TRI throughout coming to the end of the construction season. As operations, maintenance was busy working with the upcoming projects, the concrete repair project, which is actually underway or wrapping up, Headworks bar screen compactor upgrade, master plan and admin remodel. Completed all of our preventative maintenance work orders for August. And you see the open accounts, see an uptick in I&E staff's open work orders, and that's basically due to the projects you see below where they were running conduit form wire for additional oxygen probes on the oxygenation basins in support of operations. Other projects, the ADA appliances that we've been installing that are related to the office upgrade or remodels. You saw it in the front door this morning. We have handicapped accessible front doors now. Inner doors will be installed this coming week, and we continue to work on the bathrooms. One thing I wanted to highlight is our tour of Victor Valley Water Reclamation Authority's use of Lucity. Very productive meeting with their staff. I want to thank them for taking the time to do that with us. It was really great to see a plant-type operation running the same software. And they shared a lot of their forms that they've already created, so it gives us a chance to not recreate the wheel. Continue to install the Camus boiler for heating, and as I already touched on, the oxygen probe project.
Great. Any questions? No? Thank you. Okay, Jay.
Morning, directors. I think Michael and Richard have touched on most of the projects already. In the month of August, engineering continued working on the concrete repair project, the admin building office remodel project, the 2019 roof repair project, digital scanning project for this year has kicked off, Havertz Improvements project that's been pre-designed. We assisted maintenance and operations and planning for the 2019 digester cleaning project. Continued development on the master plan by Corolla, and construction coordination on Squaw Valley siphon project.
Any questions? Nope. Thanks, Jay. Kevin, a new face.
Morning, President Lane and members of the board of directors. So the IT department's been actively supporting the rest of the departments in their day-to-day efforts. We did install the second security camera. I know Dale asked about that last month.
Okay.
That's on top of AWT, points towards the front gate, and it can surveil other spots. ADA equipment, maintenance's working on the doors. We were tasked with complaints for hearing impaired. And so we purchased a teletype phone for commissioning that and hearing augmentation for bookings. We are in the process of planning a PLC upgrade for our thickening centrifuge, and we're procuring parts. We're hoping to get that done soon. It's a long process. And also on our list is the admin department. We've been upgrading their computers. We procured them and facing installation using new software. And let me see, in summary, everything's been running smoothly. Challenges present themselves, and we look forward to solving them.
Jeez, no IT infallibility, huh?
We're in progress. Always.
Good. Any questions? All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Kevin.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Okay, let's go to general manager's report. Oh, no, Rochelle, sorry. Noise. You're not sitting with the guys.
I'll move my table. Hello again, Rochelle Chavez, Administrative Services Manager. So in addition to all general functions in the departments, the accounting department last month finished up with working with all departments on finalizing the budgets, the annual budgets. They are still continuing to prep for our audit, and which our auditors will be here next week for the in-house portion of the audit, and we'll work from then on finalizing hopefully by year end and bring those to the board. Billing and customer service. We've been working on increasing inspections that I've talked about previously. Finalize in August all the direct charges as well as delinquencies for the tax year. And welcome, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
Future President Cox. You were late.
Not one of these. I expected to be a little bit longer. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, no, go ahead.
You got a haircut. Congratulations.
That's for the new position.
Yeah.
So we finalized direct charges and delinquencies for Cindy County process. We received a laptop from the town of Truckee for New World Access. New World Access allows us to view their permitting process, which will help us to aid in our auditing of permits to confirm square footages or ADU properties and additional work in that area. Other than that, the entire department as a whole has been working diligently with Cassell to move forward on this next pre-live phase. We have submitted all data up to date, and we are hoping to continue to do so and then visit Cassell the end of October for our pre-live training. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I just have one question. It was interesting in the appeal from the customer regarding the indoor seats and outdoor seats. There was, their attorney cited the section of the code that said that, you know, we were supposed to, or try to do those inspections every 4 years to keep current and catch, I guess, items like that. How many, and I guess it's not residential customers, but it's just the commercial ones.
Yes.
So how many commercial customers do we have, and how many would you have to do on an annual basis to meet that 4-year cycle?
Actually, this has been a current topic. So after the passing of Resolution 1/2019, I have asked staff to increase the amount of inspections done. Since we're also not processing our Cindy County bills, it allows for additional time for staff to be able to be out in the field instead of in the office, adding all those payments in one customer at a time. Because of our separate accounting systems, we would have to enter the same data on both ends. So having this extra time for staff, they're able to be out in the field more, doing more inspections. So if you look at the second page, the first page of the attachment for the inspections down at the bottom, it shows commercial and residential. So the residential is just our suspend list of accounts for people who have maybe have a disaster policy in place, so they're not getting service charges, or paper permits that are not yet active in starting service charges. So those are different from these commercial accounts. That's why they're separated. But for the commercial accounts, we have roughly, I think it's 1,229. So we can say 1,250 commercial accounts. So if you split that into 4 years and split that into 12 months, which for our area might not be accurate.
Right.
But I had staff trying to work on a minimum of 7 to 10 inspections per week, where they are actually revisiting that now to see how they can improve upon processes to reach those goals. But we are far ahead, further ahead than we have been in the last 10 years, where some years we've only done 20 or 40 for the entire year. Just this last quarter, I mean, since July, we've done 66. So we're above any numbers we've done before, but we don't intend to stop there. We want to make sure that we are following that ordinance and implementing the review of all those commercial properties.
Thanks, Michelle.
So is the goal for the commercial properties to be once every 4 years?
Yes.
Okay, that is the goal. Now you're saying you have more, you're creating some more field time for staff to go out there and evaluate.
To be able to do that, yes.
Now when you evaluate, especially like, restaurants probably the most biggest thing. I mean, you should only be evaluating those during the summer months, correct?
Right, we want
Okay,
to
so
target those areas.
what are you
during
doing?
those
Are you
months.
doing it differently during the winter months when you go out? Are you inspecting different operations as opposed to restaurants?
Yes.
Okay.
So there, in addition to restaurants, there's still a lot of commercial properties that have tenant improvements for strip malls.
Correct.
Where all their businesses are indoors, like fitness centers. There's a new beauty school coming into town. So those type of facilities, and laundromats, to go in and inspect those type of places. I know a big one on their list coming up is some of the ski resorts, where because their business is majority of the time in the winter, it's best to hit those places in the winter and get them off your list at that time when you have.
So you have a seasonal schedule you're developing for commercial inspections?
They are, yes.
Okay, that's just what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to add on it, since we haven't done this process in years, we should be, this is a checks and balances, like sometimes we find out that we're overcharging customers, and sometimes we're undercharging customers. So as we go through this process, I would expect that as we discover these things, we may have an increase in appeals. Potentially.
And I think what I'd say is that's fine. You know, I would hope that staff would feel that it's like, oh my gosh, we've been overcharging this customer for some period of time, that there needs to be, we need to, like, that we're gonna get in trouble now. That should not be the mindset.
Right.
You know, these things happen, you know, we're a large organ, we've got a lot of customers. If we find those things, I just hope that staff wouldn't feel intimidated about bringing them to light like they did today. You know, that's perfectly appropriate.
It's interesting, we haven't had the amount of appeals that we've had in the past, and you're doing more inspections.
Right.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
They're doing more inspections, and, you know, in previous years, boy, we had a few riled up customers coming to us. So you're doing a good job.
I would say staff is doing their best to make sure to implement and follow ordinances as much as possible, or to the T, to make sure, you know, that's why today the appeal we had, they refunded as much as they can for the ordinance. And beyond that point, even though we realize it was an internal error, we still need to come to you to bring it to light and make sure that we are fair to the customer, because it wasn't their fault.
Right.
You know, so we'll make sure to continue that as we move forward.
Great.
So
Go ahead, Dan.
What's the coordination between TTSA and member districts? Because I know member districts, collection charges are based on, you know, outdoor seating and fixture counts, as are TTSA's. And I'm hoping we've got some coordination there, so it's like we're not going out one year and they're going out the next year. Or I don't know how that works.
We try to as much as possible. I know TSD we work more frequently with than any other member district. I think SQUA and Alpine do not process the same way we do with our fixture counts. They're a little bit different, but for the most part we try to communicate and coordinate as much as possible, but it's not always an option. I think we have a more aggressive schedule than others do.
So is that something that's actively discussed, LaRue? I mean, Blake and LaRue might know, Blake being the GM at TSD, but it just, there's, you know, an opportunity for us to get crossways with one another, or to be more closely aligned with one another in this process, and potentially to share resources to make sure we're being as efficient as we can be. And
Yeah, so I can say from TSD's perspective that the inspection is a TSD representative and a TTSA representative, and there's a lot of dialogue between the two, particularly when, you know, discrepancies. We always want to know how you're going to handle, you know, when these things come in that are off base, we always communicate pretty extensively with TTSA to see how they're handling it, so that we can, as much as possible, be on the same page. Occasionally we have different approaches, and you know, that's fine too, but nobody likes a surprise. And so, you know, I think the staff, there's an open door and good communication.
Is it a similar process with the other member districts, Michelle? I know you mentioned SWAT, Alpine, not so much. I wasn't clear as to why. Maybe their fee structure is different, not based on fixture counts.
It is. So their connection fee schedule is different, as well as the unit fixture counts when it comes to service charges. So and plus they don't have as much activity as all the other districts do. So I imagine that staff, I would have to confirm that staff will coordinate when they work on the big projects like SQUA to be able to go and do those inspections together. But I would have to have more discussion with staff to confirm that. But, you know, it does say in the ordinance to try to coordinate with the member district to do that.
And then how about with City of North Tahoe PUD?
I believe that North Tahoe City, I don't hear too much about. North Tahoe, I believe, it is Susie, I want to say. That they
Yeah,
deal with.
Susie.
Susie that they deal with, and I think they deal with more new construction. I'm not sure how active they are with, I don't know if you have a 4-year, an ordinance to review every 4 years, but I would say that they are not as active, not inspecting as actively as we are currently.
So like if you go to Tahoe City, would you call up from somebody from, you have a point person in Tahoe City, you go out?
They don't
and
always
inspect?
inspect together.
You don't,
Not as
and
often.
same in North Tahoe, you don't inspect together?
No,
Okay,
not on a regular basis.
should that be?
Well, currently, we're maintaining, we haven't really done this in the past to this level, so we're kind of going through a learning curve, if I could use that. What we've done is we've relinquished the supervisor of that department to come up with their own plan. Since we don't know the great detail and the lengths of it and the location of all these places, we've left that department to make a plan for us. And we recently just started this. The only really criteria I'm putting on is let's get it done within 4 years, which complies with our ordinance. As we continue these meetings with staff, we're going to find out the frequency, how we're going to deal with seasonals, how we coordinate with different agencies. Is there an efficient plan we want to do and tackle? Is there a subset that we want to hit first? They haven't gotten there yet because right now they've just been doing inspections. And once they're getting into this process, they're finding out, hey, there are ways to make things a little bit more efficient. So we are going through that path of creating the efficiencies, increasing communications. One of the things I was told to staff is that if you have a process that we're doing now that we do not feel is efficient or it needs to be changed because we're changing what we're doing, feel free to make that change. So a lot of the questions you're asking are the same questions management's asking. They're going to be proposing solutions and answers to those, and we can provide an update at a later time.
I just want to make sure that we're putting appropriate effort into coordinating with member districts. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty well developed with TSD. It sounds like it's different depending on the district and what their ordinance is and who the staffing is and what their priorities are. But I see a couple things. One, we had the appeal earlier where we found out there was a customer who had, there was some kind of a mix-up and we had been charging more than what our ordinance called for. There's probably going to be quite a few customers where we're charging less. And so their sewer bill is going to go up with TTSA, and they may not be happy about that. And if it's kind of like, well, TTSA is charging more, but the member district isn't, if it's because the ordinances are different, that's a slightly different dynamic than if it's just because TTSA is inspected and the member district hasn't. There's lots of room for customer issues to come up, and that's okay because, when we haven't kind of inspected in 10 years, customer issues will come up, but I think the coordination with member districts needs to be a priority as part of this so that we're not surprising customers and we're not surprising the member districts with what's going on.
Full disclosure.
Okay, any other questions?
I just did the math on the connection fees. I always like to do that. It looked like the average house size in August was about over 3,100 square feet. So
we're ahead.
Collecting $7,000, but the rail yard artist lofts has hit our desk, and I know yours as well, and so that's going to change things very much the other way. Yeah, 77 units max size, I think. 1,200 square feet, so it'll be interesting to continue to track that.
Right, and that's a project that's supposed to be, supposed to be affordable housing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to the extent that the fee burden has been reduced on that a little bit, maybe at the expense of some larger market rate homes, that's probably okay.
Is the one up on the highway there, is that that project, the one next to the
That's got a
cemetery?
bunch of apartments too.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't entered into it yet either, has it?
I don't know.
No, I think we all collected connection fees on the
I think
Coburn
they were on the
Crossing.
old ordinance.
Yeah, before we passed the
Before we did
ordinance,
it,
yeah.
but that would have even swung the pendulum
Yeah.
probably,
We,
okay.
we receive connection fees on some of them, but not all.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Because it's as each building came up.
at Coburn Crossings, that's what it
Correct.
was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, general manager's report.
I have nothing to add substantial. The Ames software for the GIS is going to be concluding hopefully in the next month. We'll vet it out within the managers. And then the next step there is just coordinating all the software programs because they're all starting to come in around the same time to make sure they're communicating with one another. Other than that, I have nothing else to add.
Appreciate the update. I always like to see maps and stuff like that. So I guess when you get the Ames to a point where you're ready to give us a brief demo, I would love to see how that's, you know, the integration of Ames and Lucidity and work orders and the GIS works together. So
No, it makes sense.
when you're ready, that'd be great to provide the board with a demo.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy showing those too, so we'll make sure as these softwares come up, we'll give a demonstration to us. Any questions?
Any questions? Nope. Okay, let's go on to board of directors comments. Dr. Wilkins.
I'd just like to thank staff for their efforts on the classroom comp study. Those are not easy things to do, especially when an agency hasn't done one in a long time. And, you know, it's going to take some time for the ripples in the pool to settle out over that. It could take a long time in some instances, but, you know, it's important. It's a good business practice to do these things, even though it's hard to do. I think it's a good business practice. And also like to thank Blake. He put a lot of focused, detailed effort in. It's an ad hoc committee representative and really digging into the numbers and understanding how it affects different positions, different employees. And I think that gave us a better overall product at the end.
Okay. Dr. Norther?
I would like to say today is September 11th, 18 years ago today, the bombing of the World Trade Center. Just a moment of silence for the deceased and the survivors and the family survivors.
We can do that. You want to take a moment? Thank you, Director Northrop, for that. Director Tresson?
Just there's LaRue ongoing activities at TSD to try and continue to participate in community outreach activities. I know Truckee River Day is coming up. Not sure if you guys are on the schedule for that, but there's a great nexus between what we do and the Truckee River Day, and so encourage you to participate in that. And I continue to work with the Unified School District to try and integrate a urban water cycle program in the whatever course level is out there. And in the past, I think Greg from your department, Mike, participated with us in that, and it's kind of sat idle for a while, but we're trying to bring that back up again. And just again, I think it's great for us to try and educate the community about how important it is, the things that we do are, particularly the kids.
Yeah. Another opportunity for exposure is there's this event called Big Truck Day that's at the town public works yard. It gets about 10,000 to 1,500 families there, mostly kids that come and climb around on equipment and stuff. I know TSD kind of sets up a booth that kind of explains what TSD does, and that's a good opportunity to
Big truck.
Public health.
yeah, it's October 19th.
Okay.
That's a good opportunity for, you know, PTSA to get some exposure and kind of show the community what value we provide.
Okay.
We are participating more into, I just wasn't aware of the Big Truck Day, and I'm glad you told me about the Truckee River Day. I wasn't aware that one was coming up.
Director Cox?
I got a question for Rochelle. Given the fact that we've changed our billing process and our review process on new construction, how is the staff dealing with the new system as opposed to the generic system that we had in place for the last couple of decades? Are they getting through this without any problems, or is it a hassle for Emily and the crew in there?
On the billing department side, it was a different set of process, but similar to the delinquencies. So it was just, real hiccup trying to work on the programming on how to separate those billings and how to adjust them once we send everything to county. They've worked through those bumps. So right now, they're trying to focus on, improving in some other areas, increasing inspections, working on conversions from the new unit fixture counts, trying to prepare ourselves for all the commercial inspections at this point. On the accounting side, I think it's great that they're not having to process all those incoming payments. Right now, preparing for the conversions, preparing for the implementation of the new accounting software, working on budgets, year-end audit, all of those things happening. Had they had to post buckets of payments at the same time, we would have been dealing with a lot of overtime right now, and it has decreased.
So having the county collect, the independent counties collect our fees has really streamlined what's going on in the accounting department?
Yes.
And it's been a beneficial situation, which we kind of knew it would.
Yes.
We're talking $190,000 a year savings, which is significant. But what about, Rochelle, the new construction applications and?
See, Dale, this is a director's comments. Shouldn't go too much to staff if you want to have some of those.
I just
questions afterwards.
wondered how they were making the adjustment to the,
It's going well.
okay, good.
With our new permit portal, it has been helping. It's always a work in progress. We're taking recommendations from other member districts where they find issues, but overall, it's going well.
Good.
Okay.
No further questions.
And last comment here again, I just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege to serve as board president over this period of time, and I just want to thank staff, council, LaRue, and the board for the support they've given me during this period of time, and it's an honor serving you guys. You guys do a great job, and the professionalism shown on this board has been a very pleasant, so thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Okay, let's, at this point, we gotta go into closed session.